Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe. Relation Tales. Hear the story. My wife's boss, an alpha male, wanted to sleep with my wife. In response, I exacted a harsh revenge against this blatant disrespect to our marriage. I got home 15 minutes ago and was taken aback that my wife Isabella wasn't there yet. She often stays late at work, but typically she's home before me, with dinner ready as I enter. I was just about to call her to discuss dinner plans when my phone rang. "Hello dear, are you still at work?" I asked. "Yes, but I'm on my way now. I have a surprise for you," she replied. "Should I start dinner or pick something up?" I wondered. She said there'd be no time for that tonight. 20 minutes later, Isabella walked in looking somewhat unkempt, her clothes wrinkled, stockings missing, and her makeup and hair slightly disordered. "Tough day," I remarked, observing her state. She quickly came to me, hugged me, and gazing into my eyes, whispered, "You know I love you deeply and that you'd do anything for me, right?" I affirmed, ready to do nearly anything for her. She began to explain that she'd been sharing our relationship dynamics with her boss, who had some ideas that intrigued her. She confessed the concepts were quite erotic and stirred her fantasies. I acknowledged that while I let her make many decisions, major ones like house purchases, car choices, and financial planning were mutual. My willingness to make her happy doesn't equate to submissiveness. It's simply my expression of love. "You know how you generally let me decide on most things, and you're so loving and kind, allowing me almost anything I want. Well, recently, I've been discussing our relationship with my boss Ben, and he's suggested a few ideas that might make sense. He introduced me to stories about submissive men who are dominated by their partners and how it can positively impact their relationship. I must admit, Peter, these stories were quite erotic and really stirred my imagination," Isabella explained. "Yes, Isabella, I am kind to you and give you leeway in decisions that aren't critical or life-altering. But remember, I take the lead in significant matters like choosing our house, cars, and investments in major financial choices. However, I do like to let you decide on things that matter to you, things that make you happy like vacations, movies, restaurants, and even my clothes. But that doesn't make me submissive. It's just my way of showing how much I love you and want you to be happy. My dad once told me the secret to a content, stress-free marriage is not sweating the small stuff. He also reminded me that almost everything is small and that life should be lived as positively and joyfully as possible." "Okay, Peter, but I think my boss might have a point. When I compare you to him, he's assertive, powerful, and takes charge. People respect his strong personality and follow his lead, not the other way around. He told me he's an alpha male, dominant and at the top of the social hierarchy, whereas people like you, though loving and kind, are more beta, inclined to be dominated and submissive. They might not realize it, but it's a trait that's waiting to emerge. To me, this sounds like some kind of superficial pop psychology, and I completely disagree. But what are you trying to say?" I asked, noticing a shift in her confidence as she spoke. "Peter, my boss said he's going to be dominant with me in a way I've never experienced. He's boasted about his size and his prowess, and he's been demonstrating it in his office for the past few weeks. I know it's wrong, and I've probably crossed a line I shouldn't have as a young married woman, but it's been really exhilarating," Isabella confessed. "For the past few weeks, I've been fantasizing about him seducing me at work," Isabella shared. "He thinks you'd actually like the idea of me being close to him, suggesting that your submissive side might even enjoy watching. And if not, he said that you and I would have the most incredible sex of our lives when I returned to you after being with him." I looked at her, expecting this to be some kind of joke, but then it hit me that she was serious. "Isabella, you can't be serious. How could you think I'd be okay with this?" I asked, incredulous. "Peter, I know you love me and want me to be happy. I believe this will elevate our love and our sex life to a whole new level," she insisted. "Isabella, are you telling me you've been intimate with your boss? Why on earth would you do that?" I demanded, struggling to comprehend her actions. "Isabella, oh no, Peter, I would never cheat on you," I exclaimed in disbelief. "But you already have. You've had intimate conversations with Ben. And you've told me about touching his boyfriend." "Did he?" I trailed off, seeking confirmation. She averted her gaze, unable to meet my eyes, and quietly said, "No, Peter, not yet. He's waiting in the driveway. We're going to talk, and then he'll come up to our bedroom. We're going to be together. And you can watch if you want. Ben would like that. If not, you can come and get me afterward, and I'll be all yours, ready for anything you've ever dreamed of." "Are you kidding me? The thought of being with you after you've been with him is revolting," I retorted, disgusted. "And what now, Isabella? Because I'm saying no and demanding that he leave immediately." Isabella's expression turned to one of panic. I could tell she hadn't anticipated this response, and now it seemed she was going to take a more assertive stance. "Isabella, you seem to have been influenced by your boss," I said, struggling to grasp the situation. "You love me, and I want this. You've always let me have my way. and I've decided this will be good for us. Let's try it just once, though I'm sure it'll be so amazing we'll want to continue. Now, I'll go upstairs to get ready for him. And for you, you can let him in, then wait until we're done. I know you'll want this because you love me, and I believe it will be great for us. Isabella, I see where you stand, and what this means for our marriage and vows. So, go ahead and get ready, and I'll have a quick talk with your visitor, I replied, my voice heavy with emotion. He's not my lover, Peter. This is just about intense, dominant encounters. I will always love only you and will be yours forever, and you'll be mine, Isabella insisted, moving to hug and kiss me. But I pushed her away, my eyes filled with surprise and pain. Well, don't wait on my account, Isabella. It's clear you're set on doing this regardless of what I say. If not now, then eventually, perhaps even without telling me. But you've already betrayed me, so go upstairs and get ready, I said, the weight of her betrayal heavy in my voice. Her expression shifted to guilt and shock at my words, but she turned to leave. Halfway up the stairs, she looked back, asserting, this is going to be a game changer. Yes, Isabella, it certainly will be a game changer. You've made your choice, I replied, feeling a mix of anger and resignation. After she walked upstairs, I went to her purse and took out her car keys, house keys, and phone. From her wallet, I removed our joint credit card. Then, I headed to the kitchen, pulled out a dish towel, some zip ties from a utility drawer, and a large carving knife. With these in hand, I went outside to confront Ben. Ben was in his car, engrossed in his phone. As I approached, he rolled down the window and said smugly, okay, little Peter, I assume your wife filled you in. Don't worry, I'll still let her be with you, at least for now, until she's totally under my control. You're going to enjoy this, Ben started, but I didn't let him finish. I launched into the most forceful left hook I could muster, striking him squarely in the nose. The sound of a crunch confirmed I'd inflicted damage. Handing him a kitchen towel, I said, here, you might need this, Ben. As he brought it to his nose, I quickly looped a zip tie around his left wrist, secured it to the headrest bar, and tightened it. Next, I opened the car door and delivered another left hook, this time targeting his lower body, right where he boasted his manhood was. He doubled over in pain, curling up as much as the zip tie on his wrist allowed. His right hand clutched the steering wheel while he screamed in agony. Seizing the moment, I swiftly zip-tied his right hand to the steering wheel. Leaning close to his face, I taunted, so, the big, strong, dominant alpha male is having trouble now, huh? What a pathetic situation you've got yourself into. You've misjudged this scenario horribly, and you're about to learn from your mistakes. Unfortunately for you, Isabella is expecting something epic, so let's not disappoint her. I picked up a water hose lying on the grass, equipped with a sturdy steel nozzle. With a swing, I shattered the car's side window, sending fragments scattering across the seat and floor. Then, I moved to the front, striking the windshield. While it didn't break, I managed to fill it with cracks and dents, as if it had been pelted with golf ball-sized debris. I also smashed the headlights, finding a grim satisfaction in the act. Returning to the driver's side, I chuckled, looks like your car could use some work. Then, pulling a knife from my back pocket, I quickly leaned towards the car and pressed the blade against the jugular vein in his neck. In my most menacing tone, I hissed, how many times have you been with my wife? Did you try to convince her that I would accept this? Fear flashed in his eyes as he stuttered. Only twice, these last few weeks. It meant nothing, it was just sex. Please, let me go, and I promise you'll never see me again. I regarded him with contempt, seeing him as nothing more than despicable. I'm not going to end you right now, but make no mistake, if I get wind of any trouble from the police or any repercussions from our little chat today, I will come after you. If you involve the police, I might end up in jail, maybe get out on bail, or even serve time. But regardless, there will come a day when I will find you, maybe in a parking lot, maybe in an elevator at work. And when that day comes, I will finish what I started. It's your choice. This could be the last time you ever see me, or you could spend the next week, month, or year looking over your shoulder, waiting for the moment I decide to end you. With these words, I leaned over him, stuck the knife into the passenger seat and said, Isabella will need this to free you, so you can either drive her away or maybe she'll take you to the emergency room. Doesn't matter, just make sure you get her out of my sight. I walked into the house, and as soon as Isabella heard the front door close, she called from the bedroom, Is that you, Ben? Come up here. Have you sorted things out with Peter? I was taken aback by her naivety. Isabella, Ben's in the car. He wants you to come out and talk. I think he's reconsidering, I replied. A minute later, Isabella came down, wearing the underwear I'd bought her and a hastily donned robe. What happened, Peter? Did you reassure him everything's okay? She asked. I made it clear his future depends on his actions. You should probably go out and talk to him, I responded. She looked at me, puzzled, and said, Peter, please remember that I love you, and this is going to strengthen us. Of course, Isabella, I replied, masking my true feelings, feeling a newfound sense of resolve. I locked the front door immediately after Isabella walked out. As I made my way upstairs, I heard Isabella screaming, "What have you done? Peter, come here." I ignored her pleas and went into our bedroom, pulling out a suitcase. I quickly gathered a handful of Isabella's underwear, bras, and socks from her drawers. Then I grabbed some t-shirts, shirts, jeans, and sweaters from her closet, packing them into the suitcase. In the bathroom, I hastily threw as much of her makeup and personal items as I could fit into the suitcase. Returning to the closet, I grabbed a pair of her tennis shoes. Walking to the guest bedroom at the front of the house, I opened the window and shouted, "Isabella, you might need this," as I dumped the suitcase onto the driveway. Some perfume bottles might have broken, but that was no longer my concern. Then I threw her tennis shoes, aiming for her, but she managed to dodge them. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes and cried, "Peter, please, what are you doing?" I replied, "I was sure this was what you wanted. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you angry or hurt you. I can't believe how harsh and brutal you were to Ben. He's my boss, for goodness sake. Please, Peter, let me in so we can talk about how to get through this," Isabella pleaded, her voice laced with disbelief. "Isabella, I can't even begin to express how absurd you've sounded since you got home with this scheme to turn me into a cuckold. I'm wondering if you've had a stroke, or on drugs, or maybe I just never realized how petty and pathetic you truly are. Regardless, it doesn't matter now. I want you to leave. Take your lover to the hospital. But ask him what will happen if any word of today's events gets back to me, from the police or anyone else. I'll pack the rest of your things in bags and you can tell me where to drop them off. But don't you dare come back to this house again," I said firmly. With that, I slammed the window shut, went downstairs, opened the front door, and threw her purse at her. It hit her in the chest before I slammed the door closed. I couldn't resist adding, "Is this enough for you, Isabella?" as a final remark. I locked the door behind me and headed to the kitchen to open my second beer. It dawned on me that I needed to contact my lawyer immediately, in case the police were involved, and also to seek a recommendation for a good divorce attorney. Glancing out the front window, I saw Ben yelling and cursing at Isabella as she cut the zip ties. She then placed her suitcase in the trunk. Ben got into the back seat, lying down, and Isabella, sobbing and looking utterly shocked, got into the car and reversed out of the driveway. As the adrenaline in my system began to subside and I started to relax, I was utterly astonished by the day's events, how my wife could derail so drastically, and how I had reacted in anger towards her boss. I was alarmingly close to causing him serious harm and now realized he just wasn't worth it. I couldn't help but laugh at the nonsense he had fed Isabella about being an alpha and me being a beta. Was out of love and a desire for a happy life, a happy lifelong marriage. But Isabella completely misunderstood my kindness, as if I were a submissive beta personality who would let her fool me with someone like Ben. I never saw this coming. In the following days, Isabella stayed away from the house. I kept receiving calls from unknown cell phones, which I assumed were from Isabella since I had taken her phone, pleading for me to call her back on a specific number to talk things through. I knew a confrontation was inevitable. Since the police hadn't shown up, I felt relieved, thinking I had narrowly escaped trouble. Now, it was time to close this painful chapter. I called Isabella and told her to return in an hour for a talk. After hanging up, I finished packing everything in the house that belonged to her and waited on the porch. Isabella eventually drove up in her car, which she must have retrieved from work. I wasn't sure if she was staying with Ben, her parents, friends, or at a motel. Surprisingly, I found myself not too interested in where she had been. She got out of the car, waved at me hesitantly, and then came to sit next to me on the porch steps, her face. Isabella's face was a canvas of emotions, including fear, shame, guilt, and apprehension. Her swollen, blotchy appearance suggested she had been crying a lot and sleeping very little. She looked at me sheepishly. "Peter, I'm so sorry for what I did. I don't know how I let Ben convince me to ask you to be part of that, thinking you were submissive and would be into it. Reflecting on the past few weeks, I can't comprehend how I got caught up in all this. Maybe it was his assertiveness and his insistence that it would be great for us, that I would have the best sex of my life, with him and then with you. You must think I'm insane, and I probably was, but Peter, now I've come to my senses. I love you, and I want only you. I'm asking for your forgiveness, and I promise to be the best wife, dedicated to making amends for my actions." "So, Isabella, how was Ben in bed?" I asked abruptly. "Stop, Peter," she pleaded. "After that conversation, I never went further with him. He's so scared of what you might do that he fired me and doesn't want anything to do with me. Besides, he spent 2 nights in the hospital because of what you did to him. He concocted a story about a robbery, and we both went along with it to keep you out of trouble," Isabella explained. "At least he did something right in this mess. But what do you want, Isabella? What are you asking of me?" I questioned. Peter, I want you. I want to come back home and be your wife for the rest of our lives. I'm asking for your forgiveness. I'll do everything I can to make it up to you. We can get past this and be stronger than ever. I've realized you're the only one I can ever love, and I need you to forgive me. Can I please come home? She implored. I pondered for a moment. Isabella, I've thought a lot about this. We've been in love for 2 years and married for 3. Now, after just 5 years together, you're obviously either bored with our life or at least our sex life, and you're seeking something more. You might think you love me, and maybe you do, but I'm certain you don't respect me. You wouldn't have thought of me as a submissive beta male, willing to let you sleep with your boss and then come back to me if you really understood love or respect. Besides, Isabella, you've already been unfaithful. Ben said you were intimate with him several times over the past few weeks while he fed you this alpha-beta male nonsense. Your desire overshadowed the vows and promises you made to me, and this is only 5 years in. What will happen in 7, 10, 15, or 20 years? How often will you get bored and break those vows? Peter, I promise I'll never do something like this again, Isabella pleaded. You've already done it, Isabella, so don't say never. No, I've thought about this a lot. We don't have kids, our savings are minimal, and our only real asset is the house, which doesn't have much equity. I've decided, Isabella, that the risk of staying with you far outweighs any benefit. I'm convinced that it's only a matter of time before you justify your affair to yourself, and given your recent experience with Ben, next time you might just go behind my back. I don't trust you anymore, and what's worse, I've lost respect for you. I can't be with someone who doesn't respect me and whom I no longer respect. Isabella started crying as I laid out my decision, and her tears continued as I told her we were done. Isabella, we're getting a divorce. You can keep your car, I'll keep mine. We'll split the savings and sell the house. We're both still young, and I hope to start anew with someone who will love and respect me for who I am. I've already hired a lawyer for the divorce, so we can do this amicably, or you can hire your own lawyer. Now let's load the car with your belongings, and you can go and be with as many alpha males as you like. I'll start moving out next week, so we can get the house on the market, I told Isabella firmly. No, Peter, no. Please forgive me. I need you. I love you. I truly respect you. It was just a mistake, one I was dragged into. You have to forgive me, Isabella implored. Isabella, I'm sorry, but I've said everything. Now it's time for both of us to move on with our lives. If our paths cross in the future, let's just nod in acknowledgement and continue on our way. I hope you find what you're looking for, I responded. With that I began loading her things into the car. Once we finished, I simply looked at her, said goodbye, walked into the house, and closed the door, symbolically ending our marriage. Second story. My husband and I have been together for 12 years, married for 10. About 11 years ago, when Wayne and I were living separately, his childhood best friend Brian visited him from Arizona. I met them once for dinner, but that was the only time I interacted with Brian. He mentioned being married with kids, working, and surviving cancer, but I didn't inquire further. Fast forward to the present, Wayne and I have been married for a decade. Throughout this time, I haven't had any communication or interaction with Brian, while Wayne maintains various forms of communication with his invisible Brian. Wayne meets up with him every time he travels to Arizona for business, which is quite frequent. Strangely, when I travel with Wayne to Arizona for business, Brian is never available to meet us, and Wayne always offers different excuses about it. Recently, Wayne shared a successful business deal in Arizona and invited me to join him on a trip to see the new business asset. However, he never mentioned invisible Brian during the initial plans. Later, Wayne decided it wasn't the right time for me to accompany him and revealed that he intended to meet up with Brian instead. Feeling hurt and excluded, I expressed my concerns about being left out of a business trip where Wayne meets up with invisible Brian once again. Wayne defended himself by claiming he was just being transparent and didn't want to upset me. There are more details to consider, but the situation raises questions about who invisible Brian really is after 11 years. Wayne's actions make me wonder if he is manipulating me or not being honest about his relationship with invisible Brian. Is invisible Brian perhaps a code for a mistress? I'm genuinely confused about what has been going on for over a decade. TLDR, husband regularly meets up with childhood best friend on business trips to Arizona. Wife met the friend once 11 years ago, but they haven't interacted since. When the wife travels with the husband, the friend is never available to meet, raising suspicions about potential infidelity. Thanks for joining us on this chapter of Relation Tales. If you were moved by these stories, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Don't miss out on the upcoming emotional roller coaster of relationships. Your support means the world, and we can't wait to share more compelling tales with you. Until next time, remember, every relationship has a story worth telling. See you soon.